Okay, relax. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Meenal Pathak and I teach at the Management School, and I'm also affiliated with the Global Center for Environment and Energy. This talk today is part of the Sustainability Seminar Series and the Foundation Series. So we have mostly students from the Foundation studio, I see. So you are just 2 weeks in, I believe. How is Ahmedabad University? Okay, so I'm going to do a quick introduction. I know you've seen the poster, but for those of you who haven't, Dr. Youba Sokona was the Vice Chair of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, also what we know as IPCC, in the 6th assessment cycle. In the previous cycle, he was the co-chair of the Working Group 3, which deals with mitigation of climate change. Youba is a special advisor for sustainable development at the South Center. He has nearly 4 decades of experience working on climate, energy, and development issues. He's been recently, as I understand, involved in finance and capacity building initiatives in the African region, but also a very vocal and effective spokesperson for the Global South. I have myself seen Youba very effectively in action, negotiating with on very difficult, contentious issues in global negotiations, IPCC meetings. Youba has expressed, he has a proven track record of organizational leadership and management. He is the coordinator of the African Climate Policy Center, ACPC, the executive secretary of the Sahara and the Sahel Observatory. We all seek his advice, including governments, including multinational organizations, and of course students. It's a privilege and honor to be here, for him to be here and for us to be here with, listening to him. He's also, by the way, the honorary professor at the University College London and a special advisor to the African Energy Leaders Group. I can go on and it won't be enough. So I'm going to stop and pass the floor to Youba. Youba, thank you so much for coming to Ahmedabad University. And we look forward to his insights. Youba has a short presentation, but we hope you will be an engaged audience, especially the students, and we hope you will have some interesting questions for Youba. So I'm going to turn to PowerPoint. Over to you.
Good afternoon. I am a bit impressed. And thank you for this warm welcome. I was not at all expecting, and then to have the auditorium full of those who are expecting will deal with the issue we have not been capable to do. Professor Shukla and myself, because try to work on this very important issue like climate, and then for more than 3 decades. Let me try. I know that many of you have a very limited understanding knowledge of Africa, and I just try to bring together, to take the pretext of Africa to have a conversation with you on the issue that interests you, because it's about your present, your future on climate issues. That's very important. And then I will try just to have a pretext of giving that on sustainable development, climate change, and energy transition in Africa, understanding the issue and what needs to be done. We couldn't delete Africa because a large part of India, you find it in Africa, and then a large part of India also, a lot of Africa, you find it in India, a large part of India, you find it in Africa. You know, yesterday, Mimal took me with a tuk-tuk and then to go in the city, the old city, and I feel at home. It's exactly what I've seen, and then the people of South America, they are very happy. That is completely different what we see in Berlin, in Paris, in New York, in Washington, and so on and so forth, of Tokyo. Let me begin by some observation. And then the world is in big urgent need of transformative solutions that can bend the trajectory towards sustainability. Because we all know there is no need pretend to anybody that climate change is irrelevant. And then all those who has more than 40 years old, they know that climate is changing. The kind of climate we live in, we are born in, is the one we are living in is completely different. And then it's fastly changing with extreme events. And then we need to. And it's important in that context that when we have adequate, reliable, and affordable energy services, they have the key prerequisites. You cannot do anything in life without energy. And then if you solve energy issue, you solve a large part of the problem we are having anywhere in this planet. Without energy, you cannot do anything. And if you look at what is happening globally at the global level in terms of conflicts, in terms of war, and all of them, if you analyze them, they are related to control energy resources. In the back, that means it's critical, it's fundamental, it's important. And if you take Africa, or if you take some of the world communities, world areas in India here, they have a pressing need to address access to energy services through a rapid, wide-scale expansion of both electricity generation capacity, because electricity is much more important because all kinds of energy can lead to the production of electricity, and electricity is important to produce all kinds of things we need in life. It can help to have heat, we need heat in life. It can help to have cool, and then we need to air conditioning useful. It can also help to have mobility. That's a very important element. And I'm not sure, and there's also a possibility that we will have different energy systems, and I will come to that later on. I'm not sure if any of you have heard about the sun of the rock and gold. Who have heard about sun of the rock and gold? Can you raise your hand? Are very limited.
It's 2015, the world leaders agreed that by 2030, and then we have a goal that makes development more sustainable, better living conditions, no hunger, and then all kind of good things in life. They agreed by 2030, we are far away to achieve that. And then the climate is one of
the key driver and that amplifier of all the problems we are facing. And, during the last IPCC, this is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, I work on it, Professor Shukla, Minal all work on it, and then that encapsulates the latest scientific finding. And then if you want, you can get access to that, and you will find also on the website. Just go to IPCC, and then you have all the knowledge embedded there in terms of science, in terms of impact adaptation, in terms also of how to find solutions related to that. You will find that in that report. And what the report said, globally, those are thousands of pages. I will just try to summarize in few bullets what the report says. It said that the recent changes in the climate are widespread, rapid, and intensifying and unprecedented for thousands of years. For thousands of years, what we are seeing coming from climate, we never experienced that. It also said that it's out of question that it's we humans who create this problem. This is not a natural problem, it's we. The way we live, the way we eat, the way we move, the way we do things, we are the ones who have created that problem. There's no doubt about it. And it also said that unless we do something about it, that is dramatically important thing, will not be able to reduce the level of global warming. And then the climate we experience today, if we are not doing anything, you saw that all the kind of suffering we are having today, tomorrow will be much more tougher than today. That means when we get my age, it will be much more tougher than today. That means we need to do something about it. And this transformation, what is required, all kind of transformation, this is at global level. It doesn't matter where you are, being in Gujarat or being in Bamako or Wataguna or any place in this planet. We have the same thing. It's the same. It's like this room. If something is happening, and then we all will face the same problem. It is not only one person who will face that problem. It's very important. And then that will require equity and justice. And then we all have to face, because the problem that everyone will be suffering from that. And then with an idea of no one should be left behind. That requires inclusive policy making. It requires fair distribution of resources, all kinds of resources that is needed. It requires also promotion of inclusive governance. No one will take decision on behalf of the others or impose on the other. And promoting public awareness and engagement. And it will require also an adequate monitoring and reporting of the system. And the UN Executive Secretary indicated something that is clear when, for the 26 years of when the government gathered to discuss the climate issues, we call it Conference of the Parties. He said, the sirens are sounding. Our planet is talking to us and telling us something. And so are people everywhere. Climate action topped the list of people concerned across countries, age, and gender. We must listen, and we must act, and we must choose wisely. And that's very important, and particularly for you, the young generation, that me, it's very important because it's about your future, it's about your present, and then you need decisively to act on that. And what do we know about the African? The poorer part of the community. Africa faces the extreme burden climate. Part of Africa have warmed more than 1.5. This is through our jargon. Don't pay attention. I can explain to you of that. And then increased exposure and vulnerability. If you look at when there is flooding, and when there is very heat or flooding in Ahmedabad, who will suffer from the flooding? It is not those who have a lot of money, it is not the richer part of the population, they will not have any kind of problem. It's the poor people, it's the poor community. And then if there is a heat wave, and who will suffer from that is the poor and the poorest of the community that we will be facing. And then the problem that has been created, and then the poorest part of the population have not at all, they are not responsible for that because their consumption is limited. They are not driving cars, and they are not having a big consumption of energy and so on and so forth. And then the urbanization also is one of the key elements because many people are coming from outside of the country and then to come to Ahmedabad because it's a better living condition here than where they live. And then they came to the urban area with the expectation to have better living conditions, became a nightmare for them and the people who are living here. And in that context, despite the fact that in Africa there is a lot of energy resources, the people have very limited access to energy. And then the opportunity for climate resilient and low carbon development is a different option exists for that. And our work with scientific funding said that, there is 4 system transition that is needed if we want to have a better living condition. And then we need fundamentally to change our society. That require 4 far-reaching transition in energy, land, urban infrastructure, including transport and industrial system. And those are very important and then for the changes. And if you look at this about climate, but climate is not the only problem, the only issue the poor people are facing, the poor community are facing, the poor country are facing. there is some unfulfilled development aspiration of the continent. One is related to extreme poverty or farm. Because climate is important, but people want immediately to get out of the poverty. It's very important. And industrialization is critical, it's fundamental. People, without industrialization, there is no possibility of development. And rapid and sustained economic growth is essential. And achieve higher per capita income is critical. And full employment for many people, the majority of people, is also important. And greater distribution equity is fundamental. And environmental sustainability, all those issues are very important. And climate is amplifying all those different elements. It's made harder and harder to fulfill them. You know, we are facing climate, at the same time we are facing those different problems, and it gets escalated. This is very important to understand. And then the current energy picture, if we look at it globally, you know, that is very known and documented in the African context, because you know, it's a kind of scarcity. You have a lot of it, like you have seated in a river, and you said that you need to drink water. And you have water in front of you, you cannot drink water. And this is the situation in which we are living. With largely firewood and charcoal, those are people are using that for cooking. And then there is also some geopolitical consideration we need to look at. And I will not go in any detail on this sustainable goal, as most of you said that you have not looked. You have to just go to Google and then you look at the sustainable goals, and also that you have a clear understanding. There is 17 goals that agree to achieve them by the end of 2030. That is tomorrow. We are not achieving that. And what kind of approach exists for the continent? In the African continent, and this is also applicable in many parts here of India, particularly in the rural communities. And that means leapfrogging, and that means we experiment something that is completely new. You know, you benefited on the telephone cases by using the cell phone. I know that many of you have not used the traditional telephone, the classical telephone, because that means you immediately use that than the traditional telephone. And this innovation, for instance, we made a few years back, I think 20 years back, we look at the whole African continent with 55 countries, and then the telephone line in Africa was in Manhattan, in New York. There were twice telephone line in Manhattan than in Africa. This is a classical. And then with the cell phone, anyone, any places have access. This is leapfrogging. And that is related to the new thinking. It's related also to the system we need to put in place, because it's flexible, it's scalable. And then those are some jargon. I will not go to detail of that. I want to simplify. What that means, you have two possibilities if you want to have electricity, to give electricity to people. You have a centralized system and you have a decentralized system of the telephone. The centralized system is the system in the left. And that means many people, the poor people, will never have electricity, because it's based on those who can pay, they will have. There's no possibility and then to give. And then you have the new energy system. This is much more decentralized. It's much more, it's like telephone. I'm sure that very few of you have the possibility to have, if you have a prepaid telephone system, and then your bill will not be at the end of the month you pay, because you have to control the system. This is exactly the same thing here between the two systems, and those are things that is needed. And if you look at how to get there, the total change of those systems, the solar energy is an important part of renewable, and it is suitable to household agriculture, and then you can produce as little as 3 watt to charge a torch, and then you can produce as much as 100 megawatt to feed a city. And then the technology required to use solar energy can be deployed at all kinds of scale, from the small to the larger scale. This is very important. And unlike most competitive sources of energy, it can be deployed the same location. You don't need to transport the distance. You can produce here and then to use it here. This is a very important element. And then like other technology, the price came down, because I will show you later on how that. And then as such, we can only expect the solar to become cost effective. And then you see the solar energy by the mid of by 1975, it was also almost $100 per watt. And actually, it's less than is less than 0.3 or 0.2 US dollar per watt from 1975 and then to 2022, how the prices have diminished. One of the problems of the solar energy is that you have storage. If there is no sun, you cannot have electricity. So that the problem will be related to you store it when there is no sun, and then you will use the batteries. And then the price of the batteries also are falling down, as you can see it in this view graph. And then from 2019, and then it's expected to go further down by 2030. And then the systems change. That means we need to approach individual matter in the context in a holistic energy planning to integrate to various systems oriented toward demand side. And then we will not, this also is a bit too technical and complicated. And then we need to democratize the energy system. That means any individual can produce electricity at his household level. And there is a possibility also, if the legislation permits, and then you can become like an utility. You can produce at your household, and then you can sell it that way if that's possible. And then you can support also, there is no centralized system that will control. And then you can make it cooperative, there is different institutional setting, and then in order to be able to do that. And then development also of strong institution and strong communication and coalition building effort are necessary for the system change. In that context, and then we define a number of approaches in the African context in order to bring the access to the majority of the people. And then the question is how we get there. And then one has to look at each of the contexts. And then the context is very important. And then you look at the context will define the consent and the opportunity that need. And then you need to navigate between, analysis, stakeholder mobilization, communication outreach, and diplomatic leverage in order to clearly define your theory of change. And in that regard, there are a number of questions that came to mind. What is the time horizon for the energy system transition? If you want to change, if you want to have better living conditions, the crucial question is, do you have time to do it? Will you be able to do it in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years? That's very important. And then to have that, the time aspect. And then which sectors should we prioritize? Are you prioritizing the farming system? Are you prioritizing the small industrial sector? Are you prioritizing the housing sector? It's very important to look at what kind of sector we prioritize. And one of the biggest problems is related to the climate related to use of the fossil fuel. Fossil fuel mean all kind of petroleum products. And then if we want to solve the climate issue, we have to move away from the use of petroleum products. And then how you solve that problem if you are very poor. This is a very important element. And what lesson also can be learned and then from the outcome and constant values initiative in place. And what lesson can learn also from elsewhere, from some other country, from some other region. And how to organize also the participation of all the stakeholders, that means all the various components of the society. And there are a number of guiding principles that need to have in mind. One of them is related to leadership. Any concrete action, any place in the world, a leadership is very important, even at the university here. Without a clear leadership, it's not possible for you to get organized and then to have your perspective. That's very important. It's important also to have the concern, the issues that concern you in the political agenda, to make sure that your policymakers, they have them in their agenda. If your future is compromised by climate, you have to make sure that your policymakers at different levels integrate that concern, that perspective in their agenda. And it's very important also to have a much more holistic, comprehensive, programmatic approach than an ad hoc intervention that will not lead to anywhere. And it's important to look at all the aspects related to social, environmental safeguard, and then with the horizon scanning, and then the multi-stakeholder engagement, and then also to look at what are the perspectives of South-South cooperation on those different aspects. And in the African context, we look at certain elements, and that also can be applied here at the state of Gujarat. You know, the transition of cooking, many rural areas, and they have not the luxury to cook with gas. They have not the luxury to cook with electricity, and then they use firewood, charcoal, and cow dung. If you want to have that for them a better living condition, because cooking with charcoal, firewood, and cow dung is harmful for health. And if you want to solve that problem, you need to have a transition from them, and this is very important. And agricultural value chain, one of the critical problems agricultural sector is facing is that limited input of energy and electricity. This is very important. And then to have also a scenario, what will be the situation in the short, mid, and longer term, and you need to think of that. And we're thinking also the institutional architecture, because actually you have, in terms of electricity, you have the utility and the consumer, and you have to think of different other perspectives, maybe the cooperative, the individual, and then you need to look at those different, and then to have also a platform, communication platform that is very important, crucial. And it's important the mobilization of stakeholders. Globally, any kind of decision will have three clusters of decision makers, of stakeholders. The first cluster is the policy community. The policy community, those are elected officials, ministries, community representatives, researchers. And then those are setting the vision, the policy, and so on and so forth. And then we have the research community, such as universities here, and they are producing knowledge community on different things. And then you have the practice community, and you need to navigate between each of them has a role to play. And then you have also to think out how you navigate between the two, where you have to produce knowledge in order to inform policy, and you have to define policy in order to make practice happen, and you need also to support the practice. That's very important. And just to conclude, the critical question, it could be related to climate, it could be related to non-climate. This is very important to any kind of action we are taking at that level. And then the fourth critical question is how to stimulate the political will, how to stimulate the system leadership with a clear vision of energy for development schools to deal with climate change issues, and how to orient, innovate institutions to deliver this vision. If you want to solve the climate issue actually, and then what type of institution and then you need to put in place in order to take on board that kind of vision. And then how to access resources. When you say resources, what came to our mind is financial resources, but what is very important when the financial resources is human resources. Do we have adequate training? Have we oriented the training in our universities in order to take on board those fundamental and critical issues? Can we reflect on change completely our curricula and then to produce knowledge that will help solving problems rather than analyzing the problem? A large part of system through which we are operating is to analyze problem rather than solving the problem, and that's very important. And then how to link, because the problem is that we are dealing with climate issues is immediate aspect at the same time the longer term aspect. And then how to bring the two together. We invest to solve the problem, and then at the same time, we look at the longer-term perspective. Solving the short-term problem that I need a car to come to university. Do we have an alternative? And then if you want to solve the problem of the university or of the climate, you don't need a car, but what kind of alternative do you have to fulfill your need of mobility in a climate-friendly manner, and all those different elements, and then you need to consider the short-term and the long-term imperative. And then those are some of the elements I just want to highlight in order to stimulate the conversation with you. I know that I try not using some of the jargon. We have a number of jargon, you need to live on it in order to understand, but I hope you capture some elements and then we will have a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Youba, for taking the time, and it's really impressive that you captured all this experience and finished within time. So we have time for questions and answers. We have good amount of time. So we're looking for if you have any questions on climate or on the presentation, but also more broadly on climate, on development. Do we have microphones? Yes, there's a hand there.
I understand that we can hear loudly. So
if the other people can please keep quiet, then we can hear the question more clearly.
yes, please. Please speak loud. My question is regarding Africa as a country in the global south suffers a lot of problems that perhaps the north doesn't suffer, and the same can be said about many countries in Asia as well. So when there are a host of these socio-political problems in the country, environment often seems to take a back seat because people aren't realizing that there is a connection between them. So I was curious to understand what your views on the socio-political or the socio-cultural implications or dealing with those issues first would affect the ground level understanding of the need to deal with climate change.
Yeah, we didn't get the beginning of the question because we couldn't hear you. We heard the later part. You said that Africa is disproportionately affected?
in general was just
Global South, and then?
and so I was asking essentially when there are a host of political and social problems to deal with, environment often tends to take a back seat.
Yeah.
How do you deal with tackling that at a very grassroots level?
So environment takes a back seat when there are other political and social issues that are priorities. So how then do you prioritize climate?
But the problem is that we are dealing with an issue that doesn't matter. It does not how powerful you are and how wealthy you are. You cannot solve the problem of climate issue individually. This is a collective concern. Because if you emit here, or you emit in my country, or you emit everywhere, we have only one atmosphere, it will go there. But what we cannot predict, but the impacts, and that can occur somewhere else. This is a global concern. And the problem is that this has not been created by developing countries, largely. It has not been created by the poor community. It has been created by those the wealthier part of the countries, the rich countries, the wealthier part of the society. Because if you take around your, let us say Ahmedabad, and the poor community, they are not consuming a lot of women. They are not using the big cars. It's the rich part of the population. But the problem is, they are the poor communities, the poor country, they are the ones who will suffer. Because when the impact hard, it will, they are the ones who will suffer. And at the same time, it's likely that, the low-lying region are the ones who will be much more affected by the climate. And it shows that they are in a very difficult position and situation where they cannot wait and see. And in the international level, rightly they said that they need to focus on adaptation. They need to adapt to the situation. And there is one aspect we can adapt to solve the problem, but to certain level. Let us imagine we are all in this room, and then the water is flowing in the room. When the water is coming, there's no way the water can go out. If we not find the possibility of the water to go out, it's coming. Those who are short are the ones who will be first affected. Because the taller people will say, okay, we are safe. Anyway, because I'm tall, but the water is still coming. And we have no possibility to get the water out. In the end, we will be suffering. That means we all have to find the solutions together. Because unless we find solutions together, maybe those who are short will suffer and will die first. But in the end, everybody will die. This is exactly the kind of problem, this is the kind of dilemma we are facing. It's a common problem, it's a common issue we need to find. But those who are stronger are the ones who have to find a way, to make something in the world so that the water will get out. Water will come in at the same time it will get out. And if the more water will get out, the more safer it will be. This is exactly the kind of problem we are facing. I hope that is clear.
No, it's not it's a difficult question and there is really no easy answer to this. We'll just have to, let's say, literally put all hands on deck. There's a discussion in the IPCC we've been having that this, some people say we're all in the same boat. And then some of us argue, no, we're not all in the same boat. Some of us don't even have a boat. Some of us are very small canoes and some of us are on like rafts, like the small island nations who are already sinking. So at the global level, there is issues, but we cannot hide behind the fact that some of these countries did not contribute because there is inequality within cities, within communities, Yeah, but if you look at, I'm not talking about the old city, particularly for this reason, that you go to the old city in Ahmedabad, there is a different Ahmedabad. From the Ahmedabad that you see in the West, the cafes that you all go to on SBR, and I can't recollect the names of the cafes, but your Starbucks is very different from Lucky Tea stall. And that's a reality. That the reality of the millions is sometimes very hard, very easy to miss actually, very hard for us to see, but sometimes it's easy to ignore or to forget. And climate is such a collective problem. So anyway, I don't want to take too much of the floor time. So there are some, yes.
Three questions.
I would like to ask, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, so I would like to ask, as it was previously mentioned that you have more than 4 decades of experience. So the issues that are in Africa that are affected by climate change and in India and globally, how have you perceived these images throughout the years? What have you seen that are changes for the betterment of climate change, and what have you seen that were not present 4 decades ago?
Thank you. Yes, so what's the change now? We'll get to a couple more questions. Thank you so much. We'll take a couple more questions and then we'll give the floor to Youba. Are there other questions? Yes.
So, why do you think that many people in like most part of the world are not ready to accept that climate change is here? We over here very much accept that yes, climate change is happening, and we are starting to move forward and take actions against it. But there are many people and countries all over the world who are not ready to accept the fact that climate change is here, and they are just shunning the whole idea of climate change. We'll take one more question. And I would like somebody from the back because I don't know if you're awake or asleep. Yes.
Hello, sir. Thank you for such an informative presentation. I would like to ask that since there are so many countries in the African subcontinent, so why don't they collectively become a union type and just go forward to the world organizations like UN or WHO to gain support or create awareness around the world?
I think that to a certain extent, the 3 questions are interrelated. And the first one refers to the changes that have been happening. The second one is accepting that climate is real. And then the third related to bringing together different countries and then to act together. That are related. In 1992, I was asked to address the Minister of Environment after Minister of Environment in a conference. And I tried to explain to them climate change issues. And they said that don't come to our conference and then to bring a concern of the North here. We do not have the problem of climate, we have a problem of desertification. And I organized at the African Development Bank, this is like Asian Development Bank, a conference on climate change. I did not get a single person from the bank to come to the conference because they said that this is an issue. Why? Because they had a limited understanding of what that means. And at that time also, the science was not there. And we start looking at, because unless you have a clear scientific understanding of the problem, it's very difficult and then to convince people, because at that time, what we are seeing actually was not visible. Every time you have a lot of extreme event actually, if it's hot, it gets extremely hot. If it's rain, it will get extreme rain.
and also that is visible. At that time, it was not visible. And in that context, two organizations put together what we call the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They bring together scientists from all over the world and then to try to understand what science said about the problem and how we are able also to get around the problem. And this is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And Minal, myself, Professor Shukla, and others, we all work on that. And then in the beginning, the knowledge was limited. And then we were not sure that we humans are responsible. And then at the same time, they create a kind of UN institution all together, all the nations, because of the global problem, to say that let us collectively find the solution. For them to find the solution, they need scientific understanding and they need scientific evidence. And this is why some of you are doing their master's degree on certain issues, some are doing the PhD on certain issues to have a better understanding. If you have a better understanding, and then you can have the solution, the perspective. And then so that exists at the regional level, at the global level, in order to have a better understanding. In the beginning, some said that, no, this is fake, this is not good, this is not good, this is not true, and then there is no climate, there is no changes. But actually, with thousands of scientific papers, it's clear that no one is actually rejecting. We reject for another reason. It is not because there is no evidence of it. We have all the scientific evidence of the problem, and then we will continue to have scientific evidence of the problem. And then we are also trying to find out the solution. Some of the solution is related to the fact that we need to act as soon as possible, and this is much more complicated. I will not go to any detail, and then we need money in order to do that. But the poor people have no money. And then if there is a flooding, and then their home have been destroyed, and then for them to live somewhere, then they need some resources. If there is no support from the authority, that is the government, in the kind of climate, if there is no support from the welfare country, the poor who are suffering will not be able to do anything. And this is why every year there is a COP to discuss how it might be possible collectively to find a solution. These are in very short some of my responses. I do not want to go in detail. No,
I don't want to take your time, but Donald Trump still doesn't believe that climate change is happening. So there's not people that are denying because there's no evidence, but because it's very difficult to make the change. It doesn't align with people's personal beliefs, with national interests, and therefore the denial. Okay, can you hear me better at the back? You don't have to. Yes, Kunal, do you want to ask a question now? Yes, anyone, any questions? We still have time, so yes, something.
So you mentioned 4 transition sectors, urban and energy and infrastructure and land. And I think all people sitting here in this auditorium have very easy, clear access to all these. And while these young students are kind of growing with sensitivity towards sustainability, what do you think each one of us individually, personal level, while at the same time you did say that it's going to be a collective effort, but individually, what do you think we can do at least to make sure that we're contributing towards this collective effort?
This is very important and critical question, because our behavior, the way we change our lives, our living condition. You know, I visited yesterday Mahatma Gandhi Museum, which Minal took me there. And I asked Minal, I say, why you don't ask some of your master's degree students PhD students, and then to learn from Mahatma Gandhi living in connection to climate because of sobriety. He lived soberly, and then he not consuming a lot, and then it's a kind of decent living. But the problem is that we buy things we don't need, and we want to consume everything, and that is harmful to the climate. We have to stop using certain things. I'm not using the plastic bottles and then to drink water. I use that because I take it everywhere I go. It looks like nothing, that is very important. This is very important. And then if I can walk, I prefer walking than taking the car. There's some small things we can do. All of us in this room individually look at what we possess. You don't need more than 10% of things you possess. It's only to say that I have that all. You buy certain thing, you put in a corner, you have it at home, is that useful? Slowly by slowly, if we change our way of living, and if we consume less, and that means things will change. If the food is one of the critical elements, sometimes you take more food than you can eat, particularly before, and then just take what you can eat. Those are very important elements. Individually, we can do a lot if you think that the whole community, the impact of climate on them, and then what can I do as an individual? You cannot oblige the government to do certain things, but you can refrain yourself and then to do certain things. It might be not sufficient, but it will be very important. Look at in India here, and then I hear that there are a number of communities in Ahmedabad that are vegetarian, and then you have to live there to be a vegetarian. And this is very important. And then some can do that also to explain to people you can have a better living condition not eating meat. And this is possible, and then we are also, fighting against climate change by all those different things. There is a lot of things we can do at an individual level.
Just to throw some numbers, I think 30% of the food is lost or wastage, and food has huge greenhouse gas emissions. So what you eat and what your day-to-day choices just on food has a huge impact on as a solution to climate change. Youba, I wanted to actually ask you a question on finance. We have a lot of people who are pursuing business management and commerce. I personally believe that the role of private sector is very lackluster. They're not doing enough. And my students, some of them here, in future, when they come to my class, they will argue that companies are doing a lot. They have the ESG reports, they have the SDG reports, they are paying taxes. What is your view on the current performance of the private sector, and how do you get the private sector interested?
I think that one has to look at the issue of finance at three different levels. They are all interconnected. And the solution cannot come from only one part. Is the government, the private sector, and the individuals of communities. All has to play, and the private will never solve the problem because the private meant to make profits. It is not philanthropic because it has to earn money. It has a business. This is very important to understand. It will not take a lead on anything. And in order for the private to take a lead, it's the government who has to come in. And then to put at least in place some of the basis to facilitate bringing the private sector in. And I understand that I had a discussion in Chennai, in India, from the private sector, the benefit 2% is taken and to put, yes. Yeah, those are some of the things that can be done. And individually, one have to look at how you navigate, how you play around the participation of the government, the private sector, and the individual. I do not see any system where the private sector invests in the basic infrastructure to have access and then to water on energy. Use the government and then to reach out largely and then to maintain for a longer term, the private will play a certain role. Individual also can play. It is not only one or the other, it's a combination of the two. We have to find a common ground for the participation of those two key actors.
Thank you so much, Youba. I think we are close to closing hours. We'll just stop here. And warmly thank you again, Youba, for your time.
No, I really hope some of you, whatever discipline, whatever specialization we are doing, I think that is really important, and then to work on the life of Mahatma Gandhi, and then how you connect that with climate and make it how we can change our behavior based on that, and then so that will inform the way we have to deal individually and collectively to this very important issue, because it's your future, it's your present, and that's very important. We have to take a decision on that. Thank you.